Welcome to workshop number 2 in Medialingua project webinar series. Today we will focus on mediating a text according to the CEFR companion volume. My name is Mariela Hodová-Vališová and I'm from the Language Center at Masaryk University here in Brno. So this is the outline of today's webinar. We'll start by revisiting mediation in the CEFR companion volume. We'll have a look at first text mediation. We'll speak about it theoretically, but also we'll explore some examples and key features of text mediation. Then there will be a short interactive mediation task, and I hope all of you will join in. And we will finish today's webinar by reflection and discussion. So the CEFR companion volume distinguishes 3 types of mediation. So let me ask you, do you remember from the previous webinar what are these 3 types of mediation? Just unmute and tell us, anybody. Time's up, 2 minutes over, so let's continue. Of course, after finishing this activity, you could immediately see the results, but let's go through them together. So let's have a look at the first concept, which is mediating, in fact, a concept. These examples illustrate situations when students have to explain, for example, the concept of irony. They need to explain a broad concept of democracy, or there is a situation in which a teacher explains the difference between past and present perfect tenses. Let's have a look at the following set of examples. These examples should illustrate mediating communication. These are the situations when in real life communication may happen, people do not understand each other very well. So for that reason, students may need to reform, for example, a harsh comment, or during an Erasmus exchange, the visit, students might help a foreign guest understanding the questions by reformulating it. Or, for example, a student might need to clarify some cultural reference behind a joke. And the third category is mediating a text. This is the topic of today's webinar. Here the examples include a student who reads a blog and finally prepares a short infographic, a student reading and interpreting statistics chart, and then the students watching a short animated film and then writing about a paragraph about what they liked most. So I hope you got everything right. And now you are familiar with the 3 key concepts of mediation, but let's move a bit further, right? And there is another question for you I've prepared. Yeah, there are various kinds of activities which may include text understood in a broad sense, as it is described in the CEFR companion volume. So I would like you once again to scan this code and sort out the examples into 2 categories. Is this an example of text mediation or not really? Okay. So I will give you again 2 minutes to go through it on your own, at your own pace. I think 2 minutes is sufficient time for this activity. In the results, but also your correct answer or your correct answers. So as I told you, you sorted out the examples into 2 groups, not text mediation and text mediation. I think it's worth going through this example together and explain a little bit more why this is not considered a text mediation. For example, here you can see the 4 examples of not text mediation, because when you translate something word for word, when you just read or copy part of a text, but there is no reformulation, there is no cognitive processing. This cannot be considered a way of mediating the message. So let's have a look at the following slide where there are clear examples of text mediation. When you explain a newspaper article to a friend, when you adapt a scientific text for young learners, or select information, or interpret a bar chart, these are typical examples of mediations because you need to adjust the content. Cognitive processing is important part of it. You really pay attention and focus on who you are adapting the text, mediating the text, interpreting information for. And to reflect on the activity we've just done, what is text mediation, a text mediation activity? So primarily, you need a source text. This can be written, however, it can be also a visual image, multimodal. It could be an audio recording. Then, of course, another important element is the audience and communicative purpose. The message is transformed so that the meaning is processed and adapted to fit the audience's either language level or needs. And what about the role of your audience? Thinking about the audience is a key feature in mediation because we need to adapt the message to bridge the gap between the text and the audience, the target audience. Mediation is not about shortening text only because we need to reshape it so that someone else can understand it. So thinking about the audience is the key. Now let's briefly step back a little bit to the CEFR companion volume, which was published in 2020 and which introduced and expanded the concept of mediation. So how the CEFR companion volume sees language. Language is seen not as a subject to study, but rather as a vehicle for communication, as a means to communicate with people. And several key concepts were introduced in the companion volume, and these are learner as a social agent, the action-oriented approach, language for real-life use, and co-construction of meaning. And I will briefly speak about these concepts a bit later on. So, as I've already mentioned, mediation was introduced in the company volume as one of the 4 communicative modes, described as a way how to help others understand or create meaning. And here are typical examples. So this definition is taken from the company volume. The users, learners act as social agents. It has already been mentioned, but we'll also elaborate on that a bit later on. A social agent creates bridges, helps to construct and convey meaning, sometimes within the same language or from one language to another. So what does it actually mean, the learner as a social agent? The learner lives in the real world, in the social world, needs to communicate, needs to take initiative, co-construct meaning, but also make decisions about what to say, when, to whom, and how, and also needs to collaborate. And all these things have clear implications for our teaching. It's very important to incorporate real situations in our classrooms, to use authentic reasons, to use language that is used for life. And altogether in these activities, it's important for our students to focus on creative thinking and cognitive thinking. So action-oriented approach I've already mentioned briefly because these things do really overlap. As again, here is another quote you can see from the companion volume. Learning language should be directed towards enabling learners to act in real life situations. So what for us teachers, it means using authentic materials, working with visuals, working with websites, real documents, articles, videos, podcasts, so that we bring to our classroom as real samples as possible, to offer our students realistic context in which they need to communicate. The topics should be every day, something they can come across any time when they meet other learners. And of course, it's important to raise awareness of the audience. I suppose you are familiar with this scheme of mediation. Today we'll focus on mediating a text only. I've already mentioned that a text in the company volume is a really broad concept. It includes spoken as well as written forms of communication, so it can be done in speech or writing. And here are altogether there are 7 types of mediating a text. So mediating a text means passing on to another person the content of a text to which they do not have access. And this is because of linguistic, cultural, but also might be technical barriers. All these 7 subtypes of text mediation are relaying specific information, text processing, note-taking, translating a written text, and analyzing and evaluating creative texts. So I will not enumerate all of them. Now let's go through them one by one. There will always be one theoretical slide followed by a clear classroom example. So first, let's have a look at the example of relaying specific information. Very important, in my opinion, very important aspect of text mediation. This means not focusing on the whole text or on the whole, I don't know, audio or podcast. It means only extracting and passing on the relevant details, picking specific information for someone who needs this kind of information, places, price, instructions. So here is a task. This task has been taken from a Cambridge University Press course book. In the red circle, you can see the description of the task. This course book was published even before the concept of mediation was elaborated on in the companion volume. So you can see that there is nothing mentioned about mediation. It is labeled life competencies. And there are plenty of such activities in course books. So in this activity, students are asked to go online to read texts about national parks in the UK and then prepare a short presentation what people can do there, but also they need to focus on some health and safety information that people would need to know. So this is a typical of the scale, a typical example of relaying specific information suitable for B2 level. The scripture is also there. The second example is explaining data, which is very common. We all of us do, and our students too, in their presentations, when they have to turn information from graphs, charts, tables into clear verbal explanation. So it's about focusing on trends, points, and so on. And here is another clear example, again taken from a Cambridge course book, recommending the best way to travel. So at the B1 level, students should be able to explain data in writing, describe in simple sentences the main facts. So here the task is that your English-speaking friend needs to travel to a nearby city, and this table shows different ways your friend could travel. And your task, or the student's task, is to leave a message for their friend recommending a way to travel or explaining what means of transport would be the best for them. Right. Let's move on to the following part, and this is processing text. This is about this mediation activity is about reading or listening to a whole text. It's important to understand the main points, but then to condense the information, reformulate the content in a way to fit the audience and, of course, the purpose. So it is not really about picking details, but summarizing the whole text. And this is an example taken from Cambridge exams at C2 level. It's about the scale is processing text in writing, and here you can see two descriptors that go together with this activity, describe it. In this activity, students are given two pieces of text, and they are asked to write an essay summarizing and evaluating the key points from both texts. So the tasks clearly is for high level if you have a look at the text, but the main idea is to explain, summarize, analyze, and synthesize the information from both pieces of text. Let's move on to the fourth type of text mediation, and this is translating a written text. So this is certainly not meant as word-for-word translation, polished translation to be published anywhere. Usually this kind of translation is done informally, spontaneously. For example, translating a letter for a friend, colleague, family members. So it's about giving an oral or written translation. And of course, the focus is on essential meaning. So because I've run out of examples taken from Cambridge English course books, so I've created this activity, which of course you can do also with your students. And this activity is about translating the school announcement for exchange students. Just walking, around your school, you can see a lot of notice boards with a lot of various kinds of pieces of information. And for exchange students, international students visiting your school during an exchange week, it might be interesting to know what each notice is about. So this is the task, this is the scenario. Your school is hosting an international student exchange week, and you've been asked to translate announcement so that they understand it. The source text here is in red. It's in Czech, so Czech teachers can understand that. Under this Czech version, you can see possible B1 student version. This is the output of this activity. So students should be able to translate, not word by word, but the main message of it to their international students. So it's about an approximate oral translation on familiar topics. Okay, the next activity, number 5, or the next type of text mediation is note-taking. All of us do, students do it regularly in their courses. So it's about selecting the most important pieces of information, but also group these pieces of information together logically for our later use, or for example, it can be later used by other people. And again, a typical activity you may use in your classroom. Students are asked to listen to a 2-minute podcast about healthy um, sleep habits, and they are asked to write 4 key points for their group to use later on in their presentation. Of course, if there are more groups of students, each group will, it may happen they will have different points. So it might be also interesting later on to compare and have a look at their selected points. So this note-taking activity is designed for B2 level, for students who can take notes as a list of key points during a straightforward lecture. Now we are moving to the last two types of text mediation, and these are about response to creative texts. The first type is personal response to creative texts. This type of mediation involves personal reaction to a story, film, or any kind of artwork. It's about sharing feelings, impressions. It is not meant as an academic kind of analysis. So here you can see again a sample activity, which you students might like, or you might like if you like using songs in your lessons. This activity is titled Explaining the Message of a Song. So students listen to a song, for example, about friendship, and then they are asked to explain to their partner what the song is about. Or when working with the lyrics, you may also ask them to choose which line they like most and why. Suitable for B1, B2 levels. Usually students love, listening to music, going through lyrics. So this activity can help students explain their personal reactions to a creative text, in this case, to this song. And this is the second type of response to creative text, and this is called analysis and criticism of creative text. This kind of mediation is really suitable for more for higher level students of a high level of proficiency students. Students give a formal intellectual response to these creative texts. There, usually the task is to compare works, to analyze themes, to focus on structure, interpretation, genre, style, and so on. And here is an example activity. At B2 C/C1 level, you can ask your students to read a short story. Here, I decided to choose this one, Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl, one of my favorite authors. I love his short stories. So you can ask the students to write a short review explaining the main idea of the story and whether they would recommend it to other students or not, and why. So this really needs a high level of proficiency and to do such task, but it really depends on the story, how complex the story is. And this brings me to the end of this theoretical part. To sum up, mediating a text involves turning a source text, which can be written, spoken, visual, or multimodal, into something which is accessible and meaningful for someone else. So we've gone through all 7 types of mediation, and now time for a text mediation activity. The task is mediate the school mobile phone policy. It's a controversial issue, in some schools. Students are banned to use phones. at all in some schools, and they can use them only during breaks and only during lessons when the teachers want them to use for example, some um, online activities. So imagine your school has introduced a brand new policy, okay? And your task is to explain this new policy to three different audiences. The first audience is primary school pupils, let's say children at the age of 10. Second audience, secondary school students at the age of, let's say, 17. And then the third group, some of you might feel that the most difficult group, parents. Your task is to summarize the most important points, explain key rules, and you have only 2 sentences for it. Okay. Certainly, I don't want you to do all these 3 activities. Okay. So each of you present at this webinar, you will explain the key rules only to one audience. Okay, so now I will put you into 3 groups. Okay, how to do it. So first, I would like you to tell me, think, what is the first letter of your first name? Okay, if your name is Anna, so you will explain the key rules to primary school students. So those of you whose first name starts with A to H, your audience will be pupils. People with first name starting with I to P, your audience is students, secondary school students. And people whose first name starts with Q to Z, your task is to explain the key rules to parents. Okay? Now, I will display the QR code and I would like you to scan the QR code, go on Padlet and write your 2 sentences in the column under the picture of your target audience, right? And of course, on my screen, you will be able to see the policy, the text you need to reformulate and explain in your 2 sentences. So let me sum up. Okay. First, find out what your first name is. Then, based on the first letter of your first name, decide which group, which audience you need to transform the message, the rules for, and then write your 2 sentences on the Padlet, right? So now I would like you to take your phones, scan the QR code, and open the Padlet. I will open it here too, just to show you how to work there. Right? Have you scanned the code? The link is also in the chat. You can find the link to Padlet in the chat. Right? So now I'm opening the Padlet. As you can see, there are 3 audiences waiting for your explanation of the new rules. Pupils, students, and parents. On the left-hand side, you can see the school mobile phone policy. It's really small on Padlet. I will display it and you will be able to see it on the screen, right? The task is described here. Write 2 sentences for your audience. Focus on the most important points. What does your audience need to know? What tone is appropriate? And I will give you 7 minutes for it. Okay? So really plenty of time. And on my screen, I will display the new rules. So I will mute. I will give you time to work on your 2 sentences for your assigned audience. So I will be back in 7 minutes. Okay, so time's up. So let's have a look at your versions. But now I need to again go to Padlet. Right. As you can see, there are sorry. As you can see, there are a lot contributions. So let's have a look at them. You can read, of course, on your own. Leave mobile phones for the school day in the storage. Again, when the day is over, you must leave phone where your teacher tells you. Right? You can really also use likes. So go through all these contributions, give likes to the explanations of the rules you like. So you need to hand in your phones to storage area as soon as you get to school. Cannot use mobile phones at school, right? If phones go to school, your phone will stay until the end of the school day there, right? So well done. So we've got the rules, simple rules in 2 sentences for pupils. Now let's have a look at students. What did you keep? What did you omit? So keep your phone switched off and inside your bags. Only if teacher gives you permission for educational reasons. Use the phones only for learning during lessons. Yes. Keep your phones turned off inside your bags. Well done. You all, as you already know, you can't use your phone cells during class unless I tell you. Well done. I hope you can see the relevance of this rule, okay? Also edit why it is beneficial for them. Well done. Mobile phone policy for students. Is the situation, there is a very nice introduction. The situation with mobile phones in our school is catastrophic. So there is a new mobile phone policy, right? So giving it the reason why. New school mobile phone policy. And let's have a look at your suggestions, what to tell the parents. So primary school pupils keep their phones in their bags. Secondary school students may only use their phones when allowed, right? So combining both the rules for primary schools, also for secondary schools. Is it the same here? Yeah, it's also nice that it is mentioned here only for students with documented medical or accessibility needs, right? For example, students who have diabetes apps on their phones, they should be allowed to keep their phones all the time. Well done. To parents, again, only for educational purposes. Medical or accessibility reasons, yeah, again, authorized. New schools. Dear parents, wonderful way how to start. You have new rules regarding the use of mobile phones at school. Right. Well done. According to this rule. Okay, dear parents. Yeah, there are so many people writing about the rules for parents. So according to rule, primary school this, but exceptions. Secondary school must keep them in their bags. Well done. Okay, so you did very well. So now I would like to get back to my presentation, if only I can. Right. Because there are, I put also some examples on a couple of slides, but we will not go through my examples because your examples were excellent. All of them, I liked all of them. But I would like you now to join in and tell me, what did you keep? What did you change or remove and why? How did you decide what to use, what to omit? So anybody who is willing to share with us? Please unmute and tell us.
Oh,
Hello?
I can speak up, for
Okay.
example. So I wrote, Dear parents, our school desires to concentrate on optimal learning without unnecessary distractions. So I find it's really important to state this like reason in the beginning because the
Mm-hmm.
parents can complain very easily, and
Mm-hmm.
that is an audience that, you know, like needs to really understand the purpose of
Mm-hmm.
this new policy, and then,
Yes.
you know, explain it.
Yeah. Yeah. Clear
It's really
purpose
relevant.
plus
Yeah.
clear, sorry,
Yeah,
addressing
it's
the
really
audience.
important, like to tell them like why, you know.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel that you had to really change the vocabulary you used? Changing, simplifying the
N
language?
no, not really. I was like kind of like, okay, do I have to paraphrase it or can I
Mm-hmm.
copy? And I tried to paraphrase it a little bit, but we didn't have so much time.
Yeah,
But no, I didn't. So
right.
have
Well
yeah.
done. Okay, so focusing on the purpose and the audience. Well done. Thank you, Tuti. So, is there anybody else who would like to share?
Yeah, I'd
Who?
like to say something. What I did was, unfortunately, I couldn't put it in the pedal, so I put it in the comments. I basically stripped it back down and went straight to say that what the students have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the switched off phones in their bags during lessons unless allowed by the teacher or for medical reasons. And then the reason for that, this is to prevent distraction and promote focused class learning. I just stripped
Mm-hmm.
it right back to it. So, and of course, because I only had two sentences, so of course, if the parents want to ask for clarification, that's fine. But I just sort of so that basically telling what is the rule, and then the reason for it.
But again, explaining the rule and reason. Yeah. So it was the same for you were also you didn't paste it there, but you were
I put it in the
mm,
comments. Yeah, it's in the
the
comments.
school
Yeah,
policy for you were working on school policy for parents again.
yeah. Yeah, I was the parents one, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
couldn't work out it, unfortunately. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's why I put
Yeah,
it. I guess I put
sorry.
it there.
Lack of charm. Yeah, but you're right. Purpose and audience. Um, Other people, anybody else would like to join in? For example, for pupils, students, did you have to change the vocabulary, the grammar? No? No answers. Well, for pupils, certainly, depending on the level, you have to keep the message so that they can understand it. So, really knowing their level of proficiency plus simple words, simple language. For students, again, focus on what the rule is the right one for them. So certainly, and it was in all your versions. For pupils, there was no need to explain the rules for students and vice versa. Students do not need to know the rules for pupils. If you have only two sentences for it and to explain the rules in two sentences, so you need to pick and select the relevant information for your audience. And this is what you actually did. So, of course, there is no one correct version. It can be done in various ways, and your versions are on the Padlet. You can go through them and have a look at them. But certainly, what is always valid is that mediation depends on the audience. You have to adjust your message to fit the audience, what they need to know, the key information, and of course, the purpose. The purpose, yeah. So, thinking of your audience is the key. So the activity we've just done. So thank you very much for all your contributions. So the activity we've just done. For this activity, we can use the following CFR companion volume scale. So you relate specific information in writing. So you had to select relevant pieces of information for your specific audience. And also, you processed the text in writing. You summarized in writing the main message. So this kind of activity is suitable for B2, B1, B2 levels. Of course, it is suitable, but still, it doesn't matter. Your level is much higher. But of course, um, it doesn't limit this activity only to B1, B2 levels, of course. And this brings me to the end of today's webinar. So, in summary, mediation is a central concept in the CEFR companion volume. Text mediation involves selecting, simplifying, and adapting information. What is really important is the audience and communicative purpose, because these two shape how a message is adjusted. Many everyday classroom tasks already involve mediation, despite the fact they are not labeled as mediation. But I suppose in newly published course book, the category of the concept of mediation will be mentioned there. And teachers can make mediation more visible by designing purposeful tasks from real life. So, in other words, mediation is nothing new. It is something teachers already do every day in their classrooms. So that's the end of today's webinar. And if you have any questions, anything you would like to share, any comments concerning anything, please feel free to share and tell us. But first, unmute. If there are no questions, then we can move on to the following slide. Thank you very much for joining our session on text mediation today, and we would really welcome and appreciate your feedback. So this is the last QR code I would like to share with you. So if you want to leave your feedback on today's webinar, please scan it and leave your comments there. Thank you.